Now we recognize the presence of Shri Ritvik Pandey. We welcome you, sir. Now I request the chairman of Bangalore branch to welcome Shri Ritvik Pandey with the floral bouquet. Now I request Shri Nagendra Kumar, Principal Additional Director of Director General of Central Excise Intelligence, to write up his keynote address.
Mr. Prabhu, Chairman, Institute of Chartered Accountants Association of India, Bangalore branch, Mr. Ritvik Pandey, Commissioner Commercial Tax, Government of Karnataka, my colleague, Mr. Devraj, dear friends, a very good morning to all of you. I am happy to note on a second Saturday holiday, I think all of you have assembled here to know more about GST and discuss the issues and threadbare about what the business process papers are published by the government for various consultations. At the outset, I must express my sincere gratitude to the Institute for giving me this opportunity to interact with you in this morning session. Friends, the GST today, what we have in the public domain is much more than what we have been deliberating in the last 5 years. Perhaps after the first discussion paper published in the month of November 2009, I think you have the key business process papers put in public domain for wider consultations and deliberations. All of you would have had enough time to go into the business process committee reports which are in the public domain, I think which is going to be also discussed in the day's proceedings today. As you all are aware, GST in India is a very unique kind of initiative, perhaps in the whole of the world. We are looking at a concurrent dual GST model where government at the central, at the state level are going to levy a tax which is expected to be levied on a common tax base, adopting common processes and perhaps on an harmonized law. Either the tax has been levied at the central level covering both goods and services, albeit the fact that the goods, the taxation was only at the manufacturing level, whereas the states have been levying tax on the goods alone, except some few cases where the taxes were levied on individual events of services like entertainment or professional, etc. We are looking at GST has one great opportunity for reforming the direct taxes structure in India, and also look at comprehensively covering taxing of goods and services, providing a seamless inflow of input tax credit across the value chain. You are all aware that the Constitutional Amendment Bill, which has been introduced by the government, is currently pending before the Rajya Sabha, and a select committee constituted by the government in the Rajya Sabha has gone into the provisions of the 122nd Constitutional Amendment Bill and given its report to the Parliament, and it is likely to be taken up for discussion in the winter session. Pending passing of the Constitutional Amendment Bill, which is very, very essential for introducing the GST, a lot of processes happening at the government in firming up the required necessary processes for introducing the GST. One such important development has been the constitution of the GSTN, the Goods and Services Tax Network, the IT backbone for providing the support for the tax administration both at the center and the state. It was incorporated as a society way back in March 2013, but the process has been expedited in terms of awarding the contract for sourcing an IT partner for working along with the GST. Some of you may be aware that Infosys, which is headquartered in Bangalore, has been awarded the contract, and they haven't given a timeline within which this IT process has to be kept ready. Hopefully, we're looking at March 2016 as the timeline for the GST to be ready for introducing those three key business processes what we're looking at GST, namely registration, filing of returns, and payment process rooted to the GST. Simultaneously, the GST is also looking into handholding for few of the states who do not have the IT preparedness for rolling out the GST in the country. Therefore, I want to understand that about 18 states today would like the GST to also work for their back-end processes to be ready for rolling out the GST in the country. While Centre and some of the advanced states, including Karnataka, may be having their own IT wherewithal to introduce the GST, some of the states, mostly in Himalayan states, as well as Bihar and things like that, they're looking at GST to handhold them for the back-end processes. With that process are going to be ready by March 2016. The other processes which are required for introducing the GST is with regard to the legislation. By this time, all of you know that GST will be in the format of 3 different taxes, or 3 different variants of the tax. The CGST by the Centre, the SGST by the state, and the IGST by the Centre. So obviously there are going to be 3 legislations. The Central GST law and the IGST law, being the subject of central government, will have to be passed by the Union Parliament. The SGST law will have to be passed by the respective state legislation. Now, in order to see that these bills are introduced and passed in the respective legislation in the future, there has to be a preparedness, and towards that end, the Import Committee of State Finance Ministers, in coordination with the Government of India, has been working on this preparation of the model legislations. And several committees constituted by the Import Committee of State Finance Ministers, consisting of officials from the Union Government and various state governments, have been deliberating upon these processes for over the last 3 years very seriously. If you look at these 3-4 discussion papers what has been put on public domain, it's a combined effort of the officers of both the central and the state governments working on various issues and bringing out a sort of a consensus among the states and the centre and the states inter se, and agreeing to what exactly should be the key business processes from the tax administration's point of view. Now, these papers have been presented before all of you for a wider consultation so that the taxpayer, being the important stakeholder in the entire process, is consulted and his views are taken note of it. Now, on the legislation front, I think the government has already working on preparing a draft model legislation law. Based on these key business processes what has been placed before you, I think the drafting committee on the legislation is working on preparing the draft. Incidentally, Mr. Ritwik Pandey and me, we are there in the drafting committee, we are working on that. Let me assure all of you that this drafting follows essentially the business processes what has been put in the paper. There are very few places in the report itself, there are issues which have been flagged, and there is a comment that the drafting committee on model legislation may look into and appropriately frame the provisions. So this is very, very important in the sense that the wider consultation with the industry and the trade and stakeholders and professional community like yours, the feedback what it is going to get to the government back would be definitely factored into while finalizing the draft model legislation. And the draft model legislation, like these business processes, also will be put in public domain for wider consultations, consequent to which only it will be sent to the law ministry for vetting. So this is a great opportunity for all of you to look into and carefully go through the processes what has been placed before you. While doing so, my request to all of you is this: you need to keep it in mind that GST in India has to be administered both at the federal and the state level. While the effort and our focus should be to have an harmonized approach in taxing the goods and services, there are challenges with regard to the cross-border transactions. We are quite not new to this type of challenges which has been there, whether it is in EU or in advanced countries as well. Now we are looking at one of the key areas where we would look upon the feedback from all of you is with regard to how do we tax the services when they are crossing the tax jurisdiction within the country. Now the place of supply, as you are all aware, the 125th Constitutional Amendment says the Parliament shall legislate on the place of supply. Place of supply is a very, very important thing for deciding the taxing jurisdiction. While for the central level, the place of supply may not pose much of an issue for the reason that it has a pan-India jurisdiction, be it in the goods or services. When it comes to the sub-national level taxation, particularly at the state GST level, we need to be very, very careful about where exactly the place of supply is occurring or deemed to have occurred. Now, the place of supply, the draft has been prepared by the import committee subgroup, which has been placed before the committee, and it is in the current stage of very advanced deliberations. While you deliberate upon the processes like registration, return filing, and payment and refund, particularly my request to all of you is to look into carefully the return process committee report. Registration, you won't find much of changes. Payment, the process has been made much more easier for you. Refund, all of you are aware exactly how the refund issues are being dealt at both the central level. The return is the key and heart of the entire GST, because we are looking at a single unified return for all the three streams of taxes, because credit flows across the tax streams, at least between IGST and HGST and IGST and CGST. You need to look at the return process very carefully, because we are looking at some sort of an automated process in which the invoice level matching is being for the first time introduced at both central and the state level. And I also would request a professional body like you to look into and think in advance as to how the place of supply should be addressed in a country like us, particularly in the services. Some of you are well experienced in handling service tax compliance, being in the professional community. We have today a simple cross-border service tax rules. We call it as a place of provision of service rules, which are dealing with a transaction between a taxable and a non-taxable territory with regard to a specific characteristics of services, namely property-based, performance-based, and recipient-based categorization. While these basic contours will continue to remain in the GST while we are framing the place of supply provisions, but what we need to keep it in mind is what are the challenges which we are going to face when we are talking about services which are being provided and consumed across the various states within the country. Now, those are the things which will make the wider consultation, deliberations at a very high professional level, will bring in clarity, and probably while we fix the deeming proxies in place of supply, because as you all know, place of supplies in many cases will have to be a deeming fiction, because in real world it will be very, very difficult to prescribe a formulation for every possible situation. So while we fix the deeming proxies, we need to be very, very clear what is required to be certainty in taxation, the fundamental tenets of taxation, what is certainty, and how ease is to administer it. So those are the things I would request all of you to deliberate upon. And I am once again happy that the Institute of Chartered Accountants has started this process and trying to educate all its members on the GST, because GST today is not talked in vacuum. A lot of literature is available in front of you to deliberate upon. The tax design is already available to you. The tax process by and large covering major processes have been already put in public domain. But one area where perhaps we are yet to consult you is with regard to dispute resolution. The dispute resolution process is being discussed between the centre and the states, and that's going to have a significant impact on the taxpayer as well. But those are the areas in which still government is deliberating, and that will also hopefully, I think, once these processes are finalized, perhaps will be put up to you for your feedback and consultations. Thank you once again, and I wish all of you a very fruitful and meaningful learning throughout the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your very informative speech.